I've always had a thirst or a quest of finding God. I remember there was this time whereby my grandmother was talking to her friend in the kitchen, and I was sitting there as well. I was not listening in, but we don't have a lid for ears. So they were speaking there. And then she asked her a question and said, "How was it?" And my friend's mom responded and said, "It was so great. I saw God." And me as an 18-year-old, fresh out of high school, I was like, she saw God. But I spoke to myself, internally, like, she saw God. Where did you go? I need to go and see this God. I need to go and see this God. And she said they were worshiping and praying and God appeared. So what I did, I asked her after that, I followed her and asked her, which place did you go to? And she said, it's this church. I don't remember the name of the church, but she told me that it was December that time and there was a conference or a union, when different branches come together to worship. I think it was from the 23rd of December up until the 26th of December. So what I did, because we couldn't afford to actually go there, or I didn't have money for me to just wake up tomorrow and say, I want to go to this church. And it was mid-December that time. But I managed to cut people's grass, do a little bit of gardening, chores, just to raise enough so that we can actually go there, just enough for transport. So I took her son, which I had to pay for 2 tickets now. And we just took our bags and then we went to this place, New Town, basically, where we don't know anybody. When we got there, little did we know that you don't just get there and see God. They had a schedule basically there. Every morning there's tea prayer, there's lunch prayer, there's afternoon prayer, there's evening prayer, there's morning prayer. So when we first got there, it's a school. They did this conference in a school whereby people used to sleep in classes. We didn't even bring any sleeping bags or any blanket for that matter, or food. The only thing we brought, if I remember, was 2 loaves of bread and a sweet 8, which is, we call it drinko pop. Those are the only things that we actually brought with. Nothing else. I think we were too young or naive at that time, or we've never been to such a place. So when we went there with my friend, a guy stopped us at the entrance and started preaching to us. He preached. And we went to drop off our bags in one of the classes. And I was thinking, what are we going to eat for all these days, And how are we going to sleep? When we got inside the church, I was so shocked that whatever that guy, they call them brother, whatever brother was saying outside, the preacher was saying exactly that message, including the scriptures. And I was like, what's happening here? When it was time to, so that morning we went to pray. Afternoon we prayed. And evening came. The hall was so huge. I think we were more than 100 people in that hall. Like, there were a lot of people, lots and lots of people. And for me, at that time, not being much of a churchgoer, long services, they're not for me at that time. So I slept during that service. When I was sleeping, but before I slept, I made sure that we're sitting at the center, because they've divided the chairs. You're sitting in a row 5, and then there's space to move around. Then there's another 5, then there's a space to move around. So I made sure that we're sitting in the center of that 5, so that there's no one who's going to move around or see me that I'm sleeping. It's a new church, it's a new space. I don't want them to call me to the front and say, oh, this guy was sleeping. So when I slept, I saw someone flying and touching us. he touched me in my chest, and it was like he was counting people. He touched them and then moved, touched and moved, touched and moved. So when I woke up immediately, I'm like, this guy was counting. And I asked my friend, dude, did someone pass in front of us? And he's like, no, I'm actually looking at you. You're busy snoring here. You're sleeping. You're having the time of your life. And I told him that, no, someone touched me here. And he was like, he was counting. But are you sure that there was nobody who moved? And then this guy looked at me in amazement and like, no, since you slept, there was not even one person who passed us, not even to pee or anything. Yeah, in that church, the guys sat in one side, the women sat in one side. But when it was time for prayer, or when it was time to get into the hall, we sat in different spaces. I mean, also dividing women when we went to bed, and when we bath in the morning. Women are given a section of the school, and then we also took one section of the school. But anyhow, they didn't have any uniform or anything. They just wore their clothes. But then, after the church came out, a lady came to us and said, my sons, did you see God touching his people and counting them? So she touched me exactly at that spot, where this other guy who was flying touched me. So I didn't think of much, because I was more worried about where are we going to sleep today, and is this 2 loaves of bread? And we didn't even get bottles to put on the Sweet 8, which is a drink of pop. How are we going to survive, And my friend was shocked. He was like, hey, look, this lady is telling me exactly what you told me in church. And I was so shocked. I was really, really shocked. But after that, the lady offered us food. She made, I think we ate KFC that day. And then in the morning, there were biscuits. People randomly came to us and gave us biscuits with tea. I promise you, the bread that we came with, we left with that, We didn't eat that. It was in the bags. We were even so afraid to take it out, because it was just dry bread. And people offered us things without us even asking. And there were beds as well. We slept with the guys there. I think it was like they made those air mattresses, and then we would just get in there, all of us. Yeah, I didn't feel like I was missing anything. It reminds me of that God is a provider. Jehovah, the word Jehovah means the one who becomes. He becomes whatever you need at that moment. That time, he became my pillar of strength. He became my provider. He became my comforter. I did really see God in that space. I really did see that if people come in truth and worship in truth and in spirit, something is bound to happen. But about that town, I'll get to part 2. I don't want this to be long.